Greetings on the first part of our training. This training is for engineering guys who would like to understand how the system works, what kind of parameters and cables are used and so on. So this training is not for end users or for interior designers. This one is for system integrators and installers. What kind of plan do we have? First part is about main things to know before you start, and then we talk about the system, what kind of requirements, what kind of power do we use, connections and so on. And then the main product line, we talk about each device, what kind of parameters does it have and how do we use it. And then we talk about Metaforsa product line, which is actually the part of the main product line, but something like many devices in one. So that is why it is a little bit apart. And then we talk about third-party integration. How do we connect to devices and softwares by different producers and not by Larnitech. And then we talk about configuration and software. What kind of software do we have and how do we use it to set up the home automation system. So let's begin. There are some first things which you need to know, and for some people it is a problem because they try to find the parameters of devices in the catalog, for example, or on our main website. You should not go there for this. For the good documentation you should go to wiki.larnitech.com, and all the updated documentation is inside there. So sometimes there are few versions of devices. Sometimes part of the parameter is changed. So you should go there to understand what is really the parameter of the device which you use. Also, you will find there some instructions of how to do different things, like how to connect KNX system, for example, to Larnitech and how to set it up, or how to connect your plan to your application and other things. So wiki.larnitech.com. And then the second website, which keeps versions of our software. And usually you get the application from the Play Market or App Store. And usually you then go to some kind of software which is updated automatically. So usually you don't need it. But sometimes you need the Windows version of our application. Windows version of our application is available on this website. And sometimes you need some beta version and need to understand what kind of function will be on the next version. So you go and you try the beta version in here. Sometimes you need APK version for Android application, and you go there on this website. So these are two main things which you need to know before we start. Now let's get to the next part of our training, the system. What kind of requirements does it have? What kind of parameters does it use? Connections and power and so on. So important considerations. What kind of bus do we use? There are different buses on the market, like KNX bus, like HDL bus, and different versions of Modbus and so on. So what kind of bus do we use? We use CAN bus. CAN bus is not widely used for home automation. Different manufacturers, they thought until some time that it is a little bit too expensive to use CAN bus for home automation. It is, though, very widely used in car industry. It is very widely used in aviation industry. So CAN bus is very high speed and high reliable. So it is usually used where this high reliability is needed. But we use CAN bus for home automation because at this moment of development of the market, the CAN bus devices, they became cheap enough to be used in home automation, as we think. So how many devices can we connect to one bus? We can connect up to 49 devices to the one bus. How many meters of cable can we use in one bus? 800 meters of cable. So these things, they are recommendations, because CAN bus is for sure capable of connecting directly much more devices. And 800 meters can be like maybe 2 times more, and the system will still work. But we recommend these 800 meters and 49 devices for the system to function reliably in home automation. And then can we connect more? Yes, we can. We can use many buses connected together. They use local area network, like normal local network with Ethernet connection, to connect different buses to each other. And then what size of system can we build? We can build up to 999 devices in one system. So this one is the limitation of our addresses, and 999 devices, each having many functions, each having many channels, but not more than this. If you need even more, you will need to connect different systems together, but that will be something like the smart city, and you will use a different kind of software for this. And this is still possible. So quite big systems, even up to maybe stadiums or big buildings, we can connect in one Larnitech home automation. What kind of cable and what kind of power do we use? We recommend Cat5e twisted pair cable or better. So usually Cat5e is enough for everything that we need to do inside the system. Cat6 is also good enough, and sometimes special cables for fire alarms and the cable for KNX. These are also twisted pairs, and they can also be used. So not less than Cat5e. And then the power, we use the standard DC power, 24 volts. So you can use any kind of good, reliable power supply for this. We recommend Meanwell, and most frequently we use Meanwell power supplies. So you can use Meanwell either. Can we use many power supplies? Because sometimes we need to. Sometimes we have devices which need a lot of power, and how much of power is needed you can see in the documentation. So you open documentation and see that device requires like maybe 100 milliamps of the power, and then you use many devices and your power supply is not enough. So if you need to use many power supplies, you can use them, but you need to separate them from each other. So you need to see here. So these devices are powered from previous power supply, and then we start the new one. So we cut the power line, and then we start another power line. Sometimes we need to cut only the plus, but also plus and minus can be cut, and then a new power line goes, and then a new one, and so on. So you can use one powerful power supply, or you can use many power supplies as you wish in your project. Next thing is the main gateway. The main gateway should be only one in one system. So it's better if it's not less than one, if it's not 0. So it should be 1, but not more than 1. So you cannot use 2 main gateways in one system, in one bus. And then bus connection should be terminated. We have resistors, 120 ohm, provided in the box of the ENG and Metaforsas, which are main gateways. So you should use from both sides resistors like these ones, and then your bus will work correctly. And this one is standard one bus or two bus segment system. So we have main gateway, and then we connect the bus number 1, and to the standard main gateway you can connect 2 buses. Each one is 49 devices, and each one is up to 800 of Cat5e cable. Okay, so first bus you connect by daisy chain some devices, and then second bus and you connect by daisy chain some other devices. Okay, can we use star topology for our bus? No, you should use just this type of daisy chain, when one device and then another device, and so on. So at the moment, this is the standard connection for our system. And then if we need to use more, how do we build a bigger system? So this one is for 2 buses. And 2 buses is enough for maybe a medium villa. But if you have a bigger villa or you have the building, then you use local area network and you connect additional devices which give you additional buses. Okay, so DEGW give you 2 more buses, and then 2 more, and then 2 more, and so on. And then until you have the capacity of your local area network. So you can connect maybe a few hundreds of those DEGW gateways, but not more than 999 devices in the whole system. Then we see here that we can also connect devices to the system which do not have the bus. So our media points and our door stations, intercoms, they do not have bus on them. They just have Ethernet connection. But main gateway still recognizes them as the part of the system. So sometimes you can have many devices connected to bus and many devices connected just to the local network, and they will still work as one system. 2 more questions at the end of this part. Is main controller necessary? The main controller give you additional functions. IP connection is from main controller, and cloud connection is from main controller. And you can control the system from the app only if you use the main controller. But if you don't have the main controller, the system will continue working. We use distributed intelligence when devices they talk to each other directly. And if main controller is not present, devices in the bus will still be talking to each other directly. So if this device has the connection to the switch, and this device has the connection to the movement sensor, okay, and this one is the movement sensor also, and they want to control this device, they will do so without going to the main gateway. So the command will go directly to the device, which will turn on the light, for example, or cut the water if there is a water leakage. So we use distributed intelligence, and inside one bus, without main gateway, it will work. And the second question is, do we need the internet as required part of our system? The answer is that main functions do not need the internet connection, and when you have no internet connection on the local network, you will still be able to control the system through the application, and the system will mostly work and main functions will keep working. But if there is internet present, you will have some additional functions like voice control, yes, like remote control and notifications and so on. Also, important thing is that main controllers, when you first start them, they require the internet connection to be updated. And there is a line of Metaforsa controllers, Cloud Metaforsa, which require internet to be set up. So if you want to change the setting and if you want additional functions, you will need the internet. But when the system is normally working, like the automation system, when devices talk to each other, they don't need the internet for this. Now let's move to the hardware main product line. In here we have 4 types of devices. We have DIN rail devices, which are going to the distribution board. And we have the Pattress Box devices, which go to mounting box behind the switch usually. And then we have IP devices. And then we have sensors. So 4 types. Now let's see in more details each of them. We start from DIN rail gateways. So as you remember, we have DMG and DMG Plus, and we have just a normal gateway. When do we use them? So this one is DMG, and main gateway, it has 2 buses. It has Ethernet connection on top, and it has the power connection. So this is everything it has. It is quite powerful, and inside it has the chip, which is capable of having a lot of functions. So it has an operating system and the server running inside, and the software to be set up, and the part of the software for remote connections and so on. So many things it has inside. It keeps the system data, the application control, the cloud connection. So if you have one main gateway in the network, then it is good enough for the system to be set up and controlled. You cannot have more than one in one bus and one network also. So one local network, just one main gateway. And then we have another version of main gateway, which is named DMG Plus. Its difference from the normal DMG is that it has KNX connection, KNX TP connection. So you can connect to KNX bus line if you want to use KNX control panels. And KNX control panels, as we probably understand, are very widely used. So you can use them in Larnitech installations. It also has Bluetooth inside for future use. So at the moment you will not be able to use the wireless part of this device. But in the future, when wireless devices are out, you will be able to use it to connect to the wireless part of our system. The last gateway, it is just a normal gateway, not main, but normal, and it is being used to connect additional buses to the network, to the system. So 2 more buses if you need, and you have the local area network connection, LAN network, with Ethernet. Then you connect the Ethernet and you have 2 more buses. So this is what it used for. Then we go to DIN Rail Actuators. Actuators are outputs, like the part of the system which acts in the real world, like does something. So there are relays and there are dimmers, and there is a part which controls dims the LEDs, and there is the part which goes for climate control and for water leakage control, and there is a device for blinds motor control. So let's look at them closer. These are the relays, and we have the 3 tin rail relays. The most used one is 18-channel relay, because it has a lot of channels and you can have a lot of functions with one relay. And then we have a 10-channel relay and 7-channel relay. Our relays are independent of each other. So if you want to connect to the first channel one phase, then you have this phase on input and the same phase on output. And if you want to connect another phase in here, or maybe 24 volts in here, then you will be able to do so. So all channels are independent. What becomes on input comes out from output. The second important thing about our relays is that they can be used for different kind of logic, and the logic is inside the relay. For example, you want to use them to control blind motors, and then you select that these channels they control blind motor, and they will start working as blind motor, and the widget in the application will change immediately to the blind motor. And then you change a different output to, for example, the lock, or then you change it for the valve, and the valve goes for water leakage, and the next valve goes to be connected to AC, and then you have the fan coil connection. You want 5 relays to control your fan coil and air conditioner. Then you will be able to select the right kind of the programming for any of those outputs. So these are not only just standard relay open close. These are smart, very smart relays with different functions inside. And about the power, you can use up to 16 amps per channel. So they are 16 amps per channel. So this is the real world installation. This is how it looks in the DB. So you see the white one, it brings the phase, for example, and then another one, the red one, it gets the phase to the light which we control. So this is what it is. Dimmers then. Dimmers, we have 3 versions of tin rail dimmers. We have 6-channel, 200 watts per channel. We have 4-channel, 500 watts per channel. And we have 2-channel, 1000 watts per channel. Keep in mind that the power of the whole dimmer is less than the power of each channel combined. So, for example, this 2-channel 1000 watts per channel cannot have 2000 watts per dimmer. As I remember, it is 1600 watts per whole dimmer. So you go to the documentation to see more details of its parameters. So what they do is they dim 24 volts AC, and if you have the dimmable AC dimmable lights, it will be able to dim them. It uses MOSFET transistors to dim, so this one is actually the best way to dim 240 volts dimmable lighting. Is it compatible with any lighting? No. Is it compatible with any dimmable lighting? You should try, because sometimes dimmable lights with LEDs, they are not so simple, and sometimes they require the special type of dimmer to be dimmable. So you should test If it is not known light for you, then and it is dimmable, then most probably it will be normally dimmed from our device. But you should try it and you should test it. This dimmer is also smart. It has different settings for curves of dimming. It has different settings for minimum levels and maximum levels, and how fast is the light on fully. So it has different settings. But sometimes, no matter what settings you try, some types of lights which are even dimmable are not compatible with any dimmers which you have on the market. So you should try and test before. This one is like maybe a little bit more modern way to dim lights. This one is LED driver. It dims 12 volts up to 24 volts. So if you have LEDs with 12 to 24 volts, you will be able to dim them with this device. So each channel can be up to 3 amps. And if you have 3 amps for 12 volts, you will have 36 watts per channel. And if you have 24 volts, then it will be 72 watts per channel. So not more than this. What if I need more, you ask? Then you will need to use the LED amplifier. LED amplifiers are produced by the manufacturers of different kinds of drivers which are available on the market. So there are a lot of LED amplifiers, and until this moment everything I tried was compatible, so they are pretty much the same inside. And you can change the frequency if you want different frequency for dimming, then you can change it. Sometimes you need it for different kinds of light. And you can also set up the outputs as color or monochrome, so like only white, or maybe red, green, blue, or maybe RGBW, RGBWW, so you can use different connections to this device. Next one is water leakage controller. It is nice to have a separate water leakage controller because water leakage is an important thing, and it is dangerous to leave it to the network of the bus, because sometimes you don't have the power, and sometimes you will need maybe a separate power, a UPS, which powers this device separately, because you will have to cut the water even if there is no electricity. So this device has inputs for water leakage sensors, and if you use Larnitech water leakage sensors, you can use up to 16, because we produce our own addressable water leakage sensors. So up to 16 can be used in one device in 4 buses, so 4 to 1 connection, then 4 more, then 4 more, 4 more, so not 16 to 1 connection, 4. It also has connection to valves, and you can connect sometimes 2 valves if valve needs open relay and close relay, and sometimes you connect 4 valves if it is enough for 1 relay for the valve to work. So up to 16 sensors and up to 4 valves for cutting the water. It also has inputs for the status of valves. So sometimes you have output on the valve which gives you the status. Is it open or is it closed? Sometimes it is good to have this information. So you can connect these outputs to these small inputs on our device. It also has some schedules inside, so you can set up the schedule to open and close valves so they don't become stuck. Sometimes, like maybe once a week, you should do so at night. So this device will do this. And other things which are needed for water leak control, so this device does. And here is the next device, also special, not universal like our relays, but special one for the heating and cooling control. So it has 10 outputs, which are not very powerful, I think up to something like half an ampere per channel. And it has 10 channels, so it can control up to 10 valves. You can also set up fan control for them, and it can have fan coil controller. We can use it, for example, for 2 fan coils if you need 5 channel per fan coil. So 5 and 5, 2 fan coils connected to this device. As for inputs, it has inputs for temperature sensors, and it can connect up to 12 temperature sensors, which you can use for air temperature or maybe for floor temperature, sometimes for pipe temperature and so on. So these are completely independent and you can set it up very differently. And this one is the special relay for blind motors. Sometimes it is nice to have interlockable and interchangeable relays for the blind motor. So they are not able to be open and to activate open and close at the same time, which can break the motor and can bring the disaster. So we do it the software way in the normal relay, and usually it is enough. But in here it is done in the hardware way. So 3 motors you can connect to one device. It is up to 5 amps per channel, and it also has current sensor inside of each relay. So you will be able to test open and close the blind, and it will record the time which is needed to open and the time which is needed to close automatically. So you will be able to open like 30%, open 40% blinds, and so on. With normal relay you can also do this, but you will need to enter the time of the motor to open and the time of the motor to close by hand. And here it is done automatically. Then we go to other DIN rail devices which are not actuators. They are input, sometimes output units, I/O units, and they are interfaces. So let's see what kinds of devices do we have here. We have here inputs for 15 channels, and we have interfaces for RS485 and 232, and we have UART interface, and then we have interface for 0-10 volts dimming, and then we have DALI interface, and then we have the AC adapter. So let's start from the input module. The most that you can connect to this device is 15 buttons or 15 switches. But the name is SW16. Why is it 16? Because it has 16 inputs actually, and you can use at least one of them for the ground. So you can connect 15 and 16 will be the ground. But you can use as ground others also. Sometimes you can have LED backlit switches, and this device supports up to 3 volts. So it's not easy to find, but sometimes you buy your own LEDs for the switches. Some installers do that. So you buy 3 volts LEDs, and this one will support it. But normally you have just normal switch without any LED, or maybe with separate light, which does not go through this device. So 15-channel input for switches, like this, and buttons like you press and then release. And also it goes for contact modules, for reed switches, like magnetic contacts. Doors open, windows close, and so on. So this is what this device is for. And this is the real world installation, how it is connected. So usually you use also Cat5 or Cat6 cables to go to the switches and the buttons and the sensors, and then they go here to the device. And in the bottom in here we see the bus connection. So this is pretty much everything this device has. And then we have interface adapters. Those are RS232, RS485 and UART adapters. So RS232 is usually used to control some audio-video devices. It's rarely used to control something else. RS485 is mostly used to control Modbus devices. Modbus RTU is a very wide standard to control external equipment. Like, for example, you want to control the ventilation system, or you want to control Carroll humidifier system, and you want to control the pool, for example, and the pool has its own controller with Modbus output, and then you connect it to RS485. UART is like a more low-level connection to the device, and sometimes you need it if you want to connect to third party. So it's not widely used, but sometimes you can connect to some air conditioners, or maybe some controllers which do not have other connection, just UART. So this is what these guys are for. Some people ask, can we use standard drivers for them, or do we need to make our own drivers for third party? You can make your own drivers, or you can use standard ones. We have the list of compatible devices which already has the drivers. So, for example, for this RS485 we have drivers for external thermostats from different manufacturers like Siemens or Danfoss. And we have drivers to control blind motors. Sometimes blind motors are controlled by RS485. And it is nice to connect up to 10 blind motors to one RS485. And we have some other drivers as well. So this is the real life installation. These two are RS485 and are probably connected to maybe thermostats or maybe ventilations or somewhere else. This device is to control 0-10 volts external devices. So it has 4 channels of outputs and 2 channels of inputs. So usually you use it to control lights, and you use special resistors and dimmers, like you turn them for the inputs, and for the outputs you connect it to external dimmers which dim some types of lights. But you can also use it for fans and fan coils. So if you want to control fans or maybe valves which have input for 0-10 volts, then you use these. Then DALI. DALI is the protocol and the system pretty much like Larnitech, but only for lighting. DALI goes for digital addressable lighting interface. So DALI devices are usually drivers for LED lightings, usually and mostly. They are addressable, and DALI has 64 addresses for devices, so we can use up to 64 DALI devices with our device. We have two connections in here. Up to 40 DALI devices can go to the first connection, and up to 24 to the second connection. So 40 plus 24, it is 64. You cannot connect all 64 to one input, so keep this in mind. This device also gives the power to the DALI network, and you don't need the special DALI power supply. You will just need a normal 24 volts power supply, and you power the DALI network. You also sometimes need the support for addressing. So you connect to the system and you address these ballasts. And after you address them, they work with this address. And it also supports scenes. So you can have up to 16 scenes in the DALI system. So sometimes it is convenient to use it. There are also types of DALI addresses. So DT6 type is when we control only one DALI address and device. So like if it is normal white or normal red or normal green, we just dim each of them directly with DT6 address. And if you want RGB or RGBW, you will just need a separate script. We have the script for RGB, for example, and you have 3 normal dimmers become color dimmers. But there is a new type of address inside DALI, which is named DT8. And this DT8 address has inside the all information which is needed to dim one normal light, or maybe RGB, or maybe RGBWW, where the temperature of the light of the white light will also be controllable. So you will be able to use it also. We now support it either. And this device is the last and I think the newest one for the product line of DIN Rail devices. This one connects meters, different kinds of meters. You can use it for electricity meters, for water meters, gas meters, and so on. And for meters, we use the meter bus connection. So M-bus connection is in here. And you can connect M-bus meters to the device. It also has RS485, which normally goes to connect to Modbus meters, which are also widely present on the market. So you can also connect to ventilation, for example, so it may be not meters even, so it will work like a normal RS485. The next part is about Pattress Box Actuators and Pattress Box devices. What is Pattress anyway? Pattress is a UK word, and in US, for example, they don't use it, they just use mounting box or mount box. So this is the box behind the switch or behind the socket, the mounting box. So actuators are outputs again, and we have almost the same types of actuators for the mounting box then as for DIN Rail. So we have relay, dimmer, and RGB controller. So this is what relay for mounting box looks like. it has this part where you can put power cables, and it is inside the device, so you can have more space for power cables. And it has two outputs, like two relays, and one input for the power. So what you bring here to the input, what kind of power, the same you will receive on outputs, and the neutral will connect directly to lights. So these are lights. You can also connect it not only to lights, you can connect it to low voltage lights, for example, like 24 volts or 12 volts. You can connect it to locks or valves, or also fan coils, but not enough probably for a normal fan coil. If you have the fan coil with the valve for one relay and with the fan on or off, then it will be enough for one fan coil. It can also connect to motors and low voltage, like 24 volts motors, or AC motors to 40 volts. Anyway, you can connect them to this device. And the second part is input part for buttons and switches. So up to 6 buttons or switches you can connect to this device. You can also connect to these 6 inputs reed switches, magnetic contact switches from Windows or somewhere. And you can also have the connection of temperature sensor. And the temperature sensor can be only one connected here, and it will be available for all other systems. So if you have the switch with 4 buttons and then temperature sensor, it is good enough for the whole system to receive the information from these buttons and from this temperature sensor. So this one is the same, but the dimmer. Up to 3 buttons can be connected and only one output with the power of 200 watts. So this is a normal power dimming, like 240 VAC dimming. This one is RGB control, and it can work as 3 normal dimmers for 12 or 24 volts LEDs. So it can have not more than 1 ampere. So if it is 12 volts, then it will be 12 watts. If it is 24 volts, then it will be 24 watts. So not more than this for one output. If you need more, you will use amplifiers, the same as with DIN rail device. So sometimes there is a question, can we use RGBW with this one? Yes, we can, but we will need 2 of them. So RGB will be on one device and W, white one, will be on another device. And they will work together as RGBW with whites and colors. Okay? And then we have another type of Pattress box devices, I/O input-output units, and interfaces, the same as we had with DIN rail. So this one is, these 2 actually are 6-channel inputs, and then water leakage sensor input. This one 3 inputs, 3 outputs. This one is for connecting external thermostats, not widely used, but you can use it. And 3 interfaces, the same as DIN rail, RS485, RS232 and UART, AC adapter, and 010 volts module. So let's see them in more detail. This one is just 6 inputs device. So you place it behind the switch and you can have up to 6 buttons connected, or up to 6 switches connected, or maybe reed contacts or maybe temperature sensors, the same as with the relay. So when do you use it? If you don't want to bring separate twisted pair to either switch, you want just to bring there one twisted pair of the bus and then have a daisy chain, so less cable. Then you use this device behind maybe each switch. This is how it is connected in real life. So you have the switch. This one is just normal, not smart switch, but with low voltage contacts. It can be just a usual switch. This one just has more buttons. This one has 6 buttons. So you connect it to one SW06 device, like here. And on the other side you have the bus. This one is used if you want to have not only inputs, but you want to have also LED light for each button. So if you want to have status buttons, then you use this one. So it has 6 inputs and 6 outputs for LEDs. So this is how you use it. So these wires, they go together with the device. So you insert it here and then you connect. One part you connect to buttons. Here on the right, this is a buttons part. Another part you connect to LEDs. So this part is to light up the buttons with the status. So if the light is on, the status will change. Okay. This is a small device to connect up to, I think, 2 water leakage sensors. I never used it, but some people use it sometimes. So 2 inputs for water leakage sensors. It supports either Larnitech sensors or third-party sensors. It has 3 wires connection, so it gives the power to the sensor, and it also receives the data from the sensor, like if there is a water leakage or not. This device gives you 3 inputs and 3 outputs for different voltage, so you can have up to, I think, 60 volts of AC/DC on inputs and on outputs. So sometimes you need it to integrate third-party devices. And these are our standard interface adapters for RS485, 232 and UART. You use it in the absolutely same way as you use DIN rail devices, so I will not stop on this one. So usually it is Modbus and sometimes another. 0-10 volts, also absolutely the same as DIN rail device, but the small one. 2 inputs, 4 outputs. Supports dimming. You can use it for fan control and valve control. This one is very nice device, which is using direct connection to the air conditioner. Supports Mitsubishi Electric and Daikin. You connect inside the internal module of the air conditioner to CN105, CN92 connector, and sometimes Daikin uses S21 connector. So once you connect it, it uses 2-way connection to the AC, and immediately you will see the widget in the application to have the 2-way control of the AC. So this device has another version for DIN rail. It is named DWME with absolutely the same function. Important thing to understand is that you cannot bring this cable far away from the AC. So you cannot bring it to the DB. That is why this device is so small that it can be installed inside the internal module of air conditioner. So it is usually inside or maybe very near in the box. So next we go to the sensors, and we have wall sensors and ceiling sensors, and we have floor sensors. So there are different types, and let's look at them. This one is, I think, the most popular one, because they decided to make few sensors which are usually used inside rooms in one body. So what are these most popular sensors? First, it is motion sensor, and then it is light level sensor, and then it is humidity sensor, and then it is temperature sensor. So 4 of the most used sensors for the standard room in one body. What is the 5th function? Because you see here there is 5 in 1 and 6 in 1. What is the 5th function? 5th function is infrared output. So it has not only sensors inside but also output for infrared. Infrared output is usually used to control external air conditioners. And we have a very good infrared control of external air conditioners. We have the database of the compatible air conditioners. Unfortunately, not all air conditioners are in there, but those who are inside, they can be easily controlled from very nice widget which looks like a two-way control air conditioner widget. For real, it is unfortunately one-way control, so you can only send commands and hear the beep and hope that air conditioner does everything we need. So the best thing here, if you have the temperature on air conditioner, so you send 15, 16, 18, and you see on air conditioner changing, and then you are sure that it receives everything from your commands. So most popular sensors in one. And then the recent most popular sensor, which is CO2 sensor. CO2 is now very popular because people started to understand that, for example, if they have a bad CO2 level in the office, or even worse, in the bedroom or in any room, if you spend more than 1 hour in this room, you are going to start having headaches and feel not good, but you will not understand why. And CO2 sensor, it tells you what happens inside this room with CO2. And CO2 level is very important for many clients right now, so try to offer if you did not before. Okay, so 5-in-1 and 6-in-1 sensors go to the ceiling. And then we have small ones, because some designers or end users, they don't like for the sensor to be very seen. So they like very small one, which is almost unseen. This one is really small, and it connects to the bus, and it has 3 functions in one, or there is a version for only motion. Okay, so CWM is only motion sensor, and 3-in-1 is motion, light level, and infrared output. So MLI, motion, light level, infrared output. So I think you understand what this means. This same as previous sensor, it gives you analog version of motion. So you don't just have information that motion or not. it gives you percentage of motion, like 15% of motion means that probably cat is going in the room and you don't need to turn on the light. Yes, it is quite sensitive, actually very sensitive. It uses Panasonic sensor inside for the motion, so you can use it even in bathrooms, for example, where long time you have no movement. You add timer to it, so almost all the time, no problem. It is like a presence sensor because it's very sensitive. Okay, and some people, they say we need this one, but it is not easy to mount it. Please give us the same but with better mounting. And this one has butterfly mounting, the same as a small light, for example, spotlight for ceiling. And this is different mounting, but the same version, MLI or just M, movement or movement light level infrared. Okay, so important to understand also that there is a third version of this design named CW-MSD. MSD is like a cheaper version of the movement sensor, which connects not to the bus, but which connects with the contact to Metaforsa, for example, or to the input module. It gives you just motion or not, so it's not as smart as CAN sensors, which is MLI or CWM. There is also a black version available for the order if you need it. This one is the wall sensor 3-in-1. It has inside HTL, humidity, temperature, light level. So HTL sensor on a wall. It has a CAN bus connection. And this one down here is named WWTS. It looks the same as HTL, but it has just an air temperature inside which goes to the input of some device. So these three sensors, they do not have CAN bus connection. They have one wire connection. So these are actually 2 or 3 wires, not one wire. 2 or 3 wires which are connected to the compatible inputs. So it can be Metaforsa, it can be HC10, it can be BW devices with inputs. If you remember, 1 temperature sensor per input. Okay, so this one micro size air sensor for temperature. It usually goes behind the normal switch. So you use standard contact switch, and behind it you use this air temperature sensor. This one goes inside the warm floor, or maybe sometimes where you need IP65 protection. And this one goes to the wall. Okay, these 3 are water leakage sensors. In the beginning, let me tell that water leakage sensors are very wide on the market and very popular, but our water leakage sensors are a little bit different. They are better than your normal water leakage sensor. Why? Because first thing is they constantly ping our system telling that we are online. Okay, so if any of them is not connected to the system, during I think something like 10 seconds you will receive notification about this. Okay, so the sensor is not connected. So this first, second thing which this sensor has is light with color, so you can see in what state it is. If you have like some sensors and one of them just sees the water leakage, you will see that it it is red or it blinks red. Another thing is that they are addressable, so you can connect up to 16 to one WL02 controller. Okay, so here is where you can connect. You can connect to HT0507, Metaforsa, RS12, RC12, WL02 and LSA. And WL02 is the only one that supports addressing up to 16. So this one is just on the floor, and this one is flush mount, and this one is wall mount. And from the wall you have this part which goes to the floor. Okay. So this is the real-life installation of the flush mount sensor. So this one is on the same level as the floor. And this is the example of a normal on-the-floor sensors being painted in black by the installer. So sometimes they do it. Now let's move to IP devices. These devices, if you remember, do not have any bus connection. They just have the IP connection, the wired Ethernet connection. So we have a media point, and we have two versions of intercom. The one is older, the one is more new. This media point is the device to have audio system in the network. So if you want to have like maybe 10 rooms with audio and with AirPlay for end user and with flush mount ceiling speakers, for example, so this device is perfect for this. It is one room, one device, so this device goes to one room. It gives you stereo connection to the speakers. It has two channels up to 20 watts, and it uses connection to passive speakers 4 to 8 ohms. Okay, so not more than 8 ohms, not less than 4. It uses the power 24 volts, and it needs quite a big power actually if you want to have its own potential, its all potential. So you will need something like maybe 3 amps, maybe 4 even amps of 24 volts. Then it has Ethernet connection, and it has a USB connection. So why do we use USB? We can connect Bluetooth dongle to USB, and then it will be also available through the Bluetooth. So this is why we use it. So AirPlay, possible Bluetooth, also DLNA. From our app it will give you access to DLNA storages, and if you have music in there it will play it. Also online radio. So AirPlay is almost for all the clients enough. If they want to have Apple Music or Spotify, they just run it and they send to AirPlay. This thing also supports automation voiceover. It's not a real voiceover, it's just a file which can play whenever you need it. So, for example, your blinds are up and you have the file which says with a nice voice the blinds are up with the language which you need, and you upload it to this device which has I think 2 gigabytes of memory. So it can play this file, and this file will have the address, and you will be able to set it up on any action inside the system. It is very popular for alarm systems, for example. We have our own security plugin and security mode. So when you are out of the house, it will say please leave the house within 30 seconds. After that the alarm will be on, something like that. And after you get in, it will tell you, please enter the password within 30 seconds or this will happen. So it can give addresses and automations to files, audio files. This one is door entry video intercom, and this is an older design, and this is a newer design. The newer one has NFC, so some kinds of smartphones are compatible with NFC entrance, and you can use them to enter the house. And it also has a much better camera. It is powered by PoE, so you have PoE injector or maybe PoE switch which powers it. It gives in one cable, it gives the connection and the power. It also has the relay on board for the lock, so you will open the lock from the device. It also has a card reader inside, so you can have the standard cards, access cards, and different cards can do different scenarios. So, for example, a person with one card comes in and puts the card, it opens the door, and then it has a lot of things to do for this person. And different person comes and different scenarios happen. Okay, so it is also plug and play. So once it is connected, you will see it immediately in all the softwares and user interfaces which are in the house, and also on smartphones of end user. So the end user will receive the call even he is not home, and it will need only a little bit of setup. Even without any setup, it is working. So this is a real-life installation of the previous version. I don't have photos, unfortunately, of the new version. And now let's move to control panels. The control panels are three types. We have 4-inch, 5.5-inch and 8-inch. Also we have 10-inch, but we will have separate information about that because it is being updated. So 4-inch is for 240 volts AC power. It goes to the standard back box, and it has this metal frame which is used for it. So 4-inch display, Ethernet. It also has Wi-Fi. Because it has 240 volts AC, you can use it for retrofit. So sometimes you have behind the standard switch, sometimes you have the leaf and the neutral together. So you connect to this panel and then you use Wi-Fi to control all other systems. So you don't need additional wires. This is not the best way, of course. The best way would be the Ethernet, the wired control connection. But Wi-Fi is also available. This one uses the screen which is bigger size and which is rectangular. 5.5-inch display in here. It uses PoE or 12 volts DC. So it has Android 11 on board, and it also has Wi-Fi and Ethernet. So the best way to connect it is, of course, through PoE. When you have the one cable, you connect it to the panel and it gives you the power together with the connection. And this one is 8-inch and absolutely the same as previous one, but has a couple more interesting things. Also go to the standard back box, not like you see here. It is really standard, the same as the normal switch goes, and this back box is inside the box together with the panel. So it also has these color lights, and you can control them, but from the third-party application. So you can turn them on and they will be lit in the color which you wish. You can also use it for the third-party applications if you use it in conference rooms. If the conference room is free, for example, it lights up with the green one. If the conference room is taken and not available at the moment, then it will be red, for example. Okay? But in standard use of Larnitech home control installation, this light is not used. This is just 8-inch touch panel. Sometimes there is a question, why do I use these panels and not iPads? iPads are very nice for smart homes, and with Larnitech installations we use it very widely. And current iPads Pro with nice slim dock station for the wall looks perfect for very high level projects. But the problem is that iPad has the battery inside, and after many years sometimes this happens that this battery goes bad, and some bad things can happen to the iPad, so it can even blow sometimes. Another thing is that iPad has Wi-Fi connection, and these panels, they have wired connection, which is more reliable, far more reliable. And the last but not least thing is that iPads, they are updating, and you actually cannot stop them from updating if you don't want to spoil the system. So the standard use of iPad means that it will sometimes be updating, and this is not very good for the automation system sometimes, because after update something can be wrong, and the client will call you asking to come and please fix this iPad, why it is not working. So sometimes it is better to have this kind of installable and wired connected panels which do not go to updates whenever Apple needs it. Now let's move to Metaforsa product line. This product line was made by the request of construction companies. They came to Larnitech, one construction company in particular, saying please make not many devices, because modular is not what we need. Please make one device with whole smart home inside. And Larnitech made this, so this device has inputs, outputs, and all the logic and all the connections on board. So let's look at this. But first is very popular question: is Metaforsa compatible with main product line? So with everything we have just seen, relays, dimmers, Pattress box sensors, is Metaforsa compatible? And the answer is yes. You can connect Metaforsa to any of those devices. You can have only one bus with Metaforsa, so it will be 49 devices. Not like two buses like MG, yes? And GW do not connect here. Use DMG if you want to have bigger systems, okay? But you can use any product line, normal product line, main, I mean, with Metaforsa through the CAN bus. So Metaforsa goes in the box together with the kit. The kit includes one controller, 2 water leakage sensors, 3 motion sensors, and then 4 magnetic contact sensors, and then 4 temperature sensors, and then power supply. So this goes like the standard automation for not a big apartment, maybe 1-bedroom apartment, Sometimes even 2-bedroom apartment can be enough for one Metaforsa. So what do we have on board? We have 24 contact inputs with the power. So you can use 4 wires connection, 3 wires connection, and 2 wires connection to sensors. We have 8 temperature inputs, yes, and only 4 temperature sensors in the box, but up to 8 you can extend it. And we have 10 relay outputs in here. Each of them is 16 amps, same as normal DIN rail relays. And we have 4 channels for the dimmer, and each channel in here is, I think, a little bit less than 1 amp per channel. So be careful with this one, because current modern LEDs, sometimes they have a very high inrush current, and it cannot be it should be less than 1 amp. Okay, so temperature sensors go here, buttons and switches and other sensors, contact ones, go here, and then CAN bus, and then power. This is a typical installation. Different rooms. In rooms we have lighting, and then we have dimming light, and then we have switches, and the green lines, they show inputs, and the red lines, they show outputs. Okay, so we connect some climate control devices to the outputs. We can even connect fan coils, but fan coils will take more relays, so we will need additional relay for it sometimes. So then temperature sensors 4, and then water leakage sensors, and also the valve to cut the water if water leakage, and then CAN extension. Also iOS, Android, Windows application, and cloud access service and voice control, they all come with the Metaforsa, and you don't need to pay separately for it, and you don't need to pay yearly for it. It is lifetime. Okay, so this is a real life installation, but not with only Metaforsa, but with more relays, like with additional 18 channel relay. This is a very popular installation because price wise it goes very good, and it has a lot of relays, 28 relays in this installation, and 4 dimmers and 24 inputs, and 8 temperature sensors can be connected. So this one is very popular. You can use it even for maybe 2-3 bedroom apartments, even if you also connect fan coils, where 5 or 4 relays required for each. There are different versions of Metaforsa, and we have the standard version. Its name is MF14, and it has more local functions. For example, you connect directly to it because it has the web server inside for the setup, and it uses direct setup. So you enter the local IP address, and after the first update you will not need the internet for the main setup. Some functions, they require license. You can go to the main documentation on Wiki and see what functions require license. For example, if you want to connect one video camera to Metaforsa, then it is free. But if you want to connect up to 10 cameras, you will need to buy the special license for it. This limitation is made specially for installation where you can use together Metaforsa, or you can use main product line. So the main product line will not have license restrictions, and Metaforsa will have. So it is better to use main product line if you think that both can be used, okay? Because of some license restrictions. MF14 though does not have license restrictions, but it has less local functions. It does not have internal web server. It connects to the cloud server, which is needed to set up. So you set it up through the dealer panel, so you need the internet to set it up. But no license is required. And another good thing about cloud version is that it has the fast boot. So within maybe 3 or maybe 5 seconds after the power outage, it is ready to use. But this one, MF14, is ready to use after maybe 1 minute after power outage. So MFC14 is much better when you have a lot of installations, and sometimes you need to update, sometimes you need to reboot, sometimes other things. So you need to manage it fast. If you have just 1, 2, 3 some installations in the apartments, then MF14 is better. We also have the third type, which ends with CSM. CSM is custom version of Metaforsa. Custom version is made for special custom orders, usually from construction developers. So they order it to have, for example, special amount of inputs and special amount of outputs for the special project. They could be cloud, they could be standard, and functions vary. For example, this one is named Metaforsa MF12 CSM, and it has 12 channels, 12 relay channels on board, but no dimmers. Okay? So construction developer did not need any dimmers on his side, but needed a couple more additional relays. And same amount of inputs, 24, and same amount of temperature sensors, 8. Okay? So this is just almost normal Metaforsa, but with a little bit different channel rate. This is what it looks like. So this is a little bit different than normal Metaforsa, but function-wise, it is absolutely the same version. There are also extension modules. They are just like normal modules, but they have inputs and outputs together. So these are like small Metaforsa, but without Ethernet connection. Okay? And without the main gateway connection. This one, DWRC12, is the same as CSM Metaforsa you've seen before. 12 relays on board. You can use them for light control, blinds control, or climate control, or maybe fan coil control. Same as normal relays. They are 16 amps. And you can also use 24 inputs, same as on Metaforsa, and up to 8 digital sensors. So you can connect maybe 2 fan coils to it if you want to connect fan coils. So 5 and 5. But sometimes fan coils, they require maybe 3 channels or 4 channels. So maybe up to 4 fan coils you can connect, and you will use 4 out of 8 temperature sensors and buttons. So this is pretty useful device. You can use it also for different kinds of control. This is real life installation. And in here you see that there are inputs and outputs. Yes, if there is A in the end, then it is input. If it is B, then it is output. Okay, so this installer uses this kind of marking. And on the bottom in here you see the connection of twisted pair for switches and temperatures. HT07 is the device with 7 relays and 12 inputs and up to 8 temperature sensors. It uses only 4 modules on DIN rails, so it is much smaller. And in my experience, there were some hotels which used it for every room. So every room in the hotel had one of these, and all the functions were connected to these relays. And every room was connected to others with CAN bus, and there was one DEMG controlling all the rooms. And this is even less functions, only 5 relays and 12 inputs, but no temperature sensor inputs, HT05. So this was the Metaforsa product line. Once again, it is compatible with the main product line. So with Metaforsa as main gateway, you can use other devices like relays, dimmers, sensors. Or these extension devices you can use together with DMG or DMG Plus without Metaforsa. Now, what about connection to third party? Larnitech is very widely compatible with a lot of systems and devices on the market. And how do we connect it? What kind of technologies are used for it? And first, we need to understand what kind of hardware connections are available in Larnitech if you want to control some kind of device which is made by a different company. We can use RS-232-485 UART, which you have seen, special devices for this. You can use KNX, and for KNX you can connect it through KNX IP, or you can use it KNX TP to connect to DMG .plus, and then you can connect some things through IP. And inputs and outputs connection also work. Sometimes you need it, sometimes only this you can use. Okay, so for RS-232-485 UART, you use it mostly to connect to thermostats and motors and ventilation security and so on, and to meters also. And KNX is used for push button and control panels and for sensors and thermostats, so some of them are compatible. And as for IP connection, Internet Protocol connection, it works also for cloud connections, so it goes to ecosystems like Google or Apple or Amazon. And it goes to intercoms sometimes to connect third-party intercoms with SIP protocol to Larnitech. And it uses audio-video control and appliance also. And if you don't have any other type of interface to connect, or you don't want to spend time on it, you just use inputs, outputs. Like maybe you have a third-party security system which has no interfaces on board, but which will give you a relay that it is an alarm, or maybe someone is home or not home. Then you just take input from this output and you connect them together. Also buttons and switches, third party, and alarms if you want to connect third party sensors. Okay. And another part which is important when you try to understand what kind of third party can be connected is software connection. So this was hardware connection, and this is the software connection. So as for the software part, we have things which are part of the system. So you can use third-party sensors or buttons or switches as part of the system. And then you use special software named plugins. You can activate these plugins and you can use it to connect to things like Zigbee using Philips Hue or maybe IKEA bridge. And then you use it, you use plugins to connect to KNX and to air conditioners. For example, you can use plugin for cool automation, which is compatible with hundreds of brands of air conditioners. And then for some things you use not plugins but scripts. Scripts is the thing which is available for the normal installer or system integrator to develop themselves. So you can make your own scripts and connect to ventilation systems, thermostats, and motors and meters. And there is also a database of scripts which you can use pre-configured. And we have supported online services. So if you have IP connection through the cloud, this is called online service, and we use it for weather and to connect with ecosystems, Apple, Google, Amazon, and to connect with appliance, which are available through IFTTT service and through webhooks, like white goods and coffee machines and so on. And then notifications, which is also online service, which is supported. Okay, so hardware part and software part, when you understand it, then you understand what is needed for the third-party connection. And there is a page named wiki.larnitech.com integrations. And on this page you can find quite a lot of things which are already integrated, but not all actually. So this is the page, and you can see that it works with Broadlink, Control4, Coolmaster, Crestron, DALI, DMX, HDL, and so on. I will not read all this. Most important is Modbus. Also for sound it is Sonos and Synology. And as for climate, infrared controlled ACs, and this is the list, not full but part of it. Modbus controlled AC, Coolmaster, and then some meters, and then some light, and then SIP and voice assistants in here. Okay, so this one is not the final version, because we have a lot more integrations than these, but these are some of them.